Welcome back, Lexurious Fleet. We have so much news to cover today, and Lexus just smashed the competition in Q3, just like you smashed the like button. Toyota is putting fuel cell in just about everything but aircraft at this point, and Infiniti's QX60 has been spied inside and out. Also, the 2021 Genesis G70 is already being recalled. Over automotive news, Lexus tops Mercedes, BMW, and Q3 sales. Let's dive into this juicy graph here at Automotive News. So we're just gonna look real quick. We're gonna look at Q3. All right, Q3 is where Lexus resurges as the most popular luxury brand here in America in Q3. And it is an increase from last year's Q3 of 2%. Where else? Acura is almost up 2% on the quarter. Lincoln's really close to being the positive. Porsche's up. The rest of them are negative. Now, what's crazy here, if we look at Infiniti, our boys Infiniti, man, down 30% on the quarter and almost 33% on the year so far. It's been a tough year for not only Infiniti, but parent company Nissan. I've talked about them plenty this week with their abysmal sales. Tesla still is a luxury automaker, and I guess so. They're just kind of in their own world. I guess they're really their own segment. But Lexus, here we go. They're still behind quite a bit from Mercedes-Benz if we look at the 9 months. So they've sold almost 197,000 vehicles. Lexus is trailing 182, but they have just passed BMW because they're outstanding in third quarter. And BMW had a rough third quarter. I've read this article a few times, and they talked about, how the Germans were hampered by inventory and whatnot. Everyone has been hampered by inventory. So I don't give them the easy way out saying, they just haven't had the cars. I was working for Lexus when COVID happened as a salesperson. Inventory was horrible. It still is bad. I have friends that are still work in the industry, and inventory is not good. Now, Lexus, however, has the new IS coming out. Should be hitting some dealerships by the end of October. November's probably where we're going to see a little bit of inventory. And the weird thing, guys, is that the IS 300, that's typically the more volume seller. It's a little bit less price, but you still get the same looks. Well, used to, because the F Sport is no longer available in the 300. But the 300 is more of the volume seller for the IS, even though the IS 350 is pretty delicious looking in the new F Sport trim. The problem is there are no IS 300s really even allocated to the United States at this point in time. And what does that mean? Allocation process is about a month and a half, depending, and all the ISs come from Japan. If it's allocated, that means the order has been received. We'll get a date on when they start producing that vehicle. Usually it's 2-3 weeks away from the allocation. And once it's in F status, that means it's in freight. That means it's left to the production facility and it's on its way on a boat or a train or both to America. And yeah, just depending on where you live in the United States, it might take a little bit longer to get your ISs from Japan. But I think that should help their Q4 sales. And Lexus always has an outstanding Q4. They're kind of I would say the best in the entire country for marketing their December to Remember sales event. I expect them to even have a stronger Q4 than they did at Q3 as inventory slowly creeps back. And I'm not discounting the Germans. They'll definitely have pretty good Q4s as well. Now that inventory should be regulating just a little bit. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the comments there. But we need to switch gears to Toyota. Toyota-Panasonic joint venture to build lithium-ion batteries for hybrids. Now this joint venture is called Prime Planet Energy and Solutions. It's been around since early this year. But they say they're going to produce lithium-ion batteries for cars at a plant in Western Japan starting in 2022. This is a Tokushima prefecture, and they should have enough capacity for 500,000 vehicles a year. But if we look down at the bottom, guys, Toyota last month said it expects annual sales of electrified vehicles to reach 5.5 million by 2025, 5 years earlier than they initially planned. 5.5 million, that's 5,500,000. 500,000 of those batteries for Toyota vehicles will be from Panasonic. It's like, well, they still have 5 million other electrified vehicles that they're planning to have on the market by 2025. So where are these extra batteries going to come from? Well, they could still come from Panasonic. It just says 500,000 are being produced in the joint venture, the Prime Planet Energy and Solutions. That's Toyota and Panasonic's own company they built together. So 500,000 is coming from that own specific battery supplier. There's a good chance that a lot of those batteries are going to be for plug-in hybrids. That's my gut feeling because that's the next step. And Toyota is also working with CATL and BYD. They also have joint ventures with those companies. And I would say most of those batteries are going to be more of your standard lithium-ion hybrid batteries. And that's going to be, they're going to be able to produce probably even more batteries than Panasonic. But like I said, Panasonic, 500,000 batteries from Prime Planet Energy Solutions, but Toyota can also source more batteries from Panasonic outside of that joint venture, if that makes sense. Lots of batteries going to be produced for Toyota, and they're just a small piece in the full electrification electric vehicle bubble. Gosh, it's crazy. Speaking of electric vehicles, Toyota and Hino to jointly develop Class 8 fuel cell electric truck for North America. And this truck would probably put a stake in the heart of Nikola. I know Nikola's in the process of kind of being bought out by General Motors, but they don't even have a working truck. Toyota has working fuel cell technology and cars on the road and on the ocean right now as well. So now where would I expect this to be? Well, probably only in California, since that's really the only infrastructure here in the United States. But they're teaming up with Hino, and Hino is a wholly owned subsidiary of Toyota. So yeah, it's really just a Toyota truck. Moving forward, Toyota Motor Europe's fuel cell module brings hydrogen to a wider maritime industry. Now, this isn't the first time we saw fuel cell in a marine, God, I can't even talk, maritime vehicle. I've never used that word. It's a boat. It's a boat, guys. They put it in this catamaran and the Energy Observer last year, and yeah, it's been sailing around the world for 7,000 miles. And they're putting it into this smaller boat, which is actually a battery electric vehicle. So the boat that they're putting this in is the REXH2 in the Hynova 40, a 12-meter boat from Hynova Yachts. The Hynova yacht is battery electric, and it's supplemented with a hydrogen range extender with a Toyota fuel cell at its core. So I've never heard of such a thing before, where its primary source of energy is the battery charged at the dock or whatever, and then they have a range extender of hydrogen and hydrogen fuel cell tanks inside of this boat, which is pretty crazy. And looking at the images, I don't understand this image here. Maybe they're just trying to put it to scale. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. They're just putting a boat on top of a massive yacht, or at least it looks like a yacht to me. And we're not done with hydrogen fuel cell yet, because Hitachi and Toyota and JR East are developing a hybrid fuel cell railway vehicle powered by hydrogen. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about this, so I'll just, if you want to read more about it, you can look at it in the description below. But I feel like this could be a replacement for diesel electric locomotives that we have currently everywhere in the world. So pretty darn cool, and it is definitely the future moving forward. I'm not going to talk too much about fuel cell trains because this Infiniti QX60 Spied gets me a lot more excited over at Motor One. And we're just going to flip through the pictures. It looks so similar to the QX60 monograph that was just unveiled a few weeks ago at this point. So we're just going to flip through the pictures. The headlights look super similar to the QX60 monograph that we got. And I want to get to the side profile here, because I feel like the side profile confirms that Range Rover or Land Rover Velar's kind of side profile that we got in the monograph. So it's going to be a very good looking SUV. We don't have those fake exhaust tips that were just cringy, super cringy. Hopefully they don't put those blocky chrome exhaust tips. But more importantly, guys, Motor One also found a inside picture of the QX60, and that was what a lot of us were disappointed with at the QX60 monograph unveil. It's just an exterior design, and they talked about it forever. Just the exterior, no information on power plants or interior. Well, let's look at this interior together. The shift by wire, how do we know that? Well, if we look down below, we have this big space at the bottom. So we know there's not a physical cable shifting the gears for you. Very different than the current setup we see in Infiniti vehicles. This knob reminds me a lot of the Mazda knobs that we see for the screens, and I hope the touchscreen up here is actually a touchscreen. I hope you're not locked into the knob. And how far forward it is, it's more than likely a touchscreen. And we're just going to go down to the HVAC controls here, which look pretty simple. It looks like this is the only screen for the HVAC, but I could be wrong here. You have dual control knobs. You'll have the screens inside for the individual temperature, and this will show things like fan and things like that for the heating and cooling. But I don't see any knobs for the radio, which is concerning. No volume knob for the radio drives me nuts. If we look over here, I think this is a pretty unique design. Having the speaker kind of enclosed by soft touch materials with this cool rounded triangular shape. Most speakers aren't triangular, but I like the design, And if we just look at the interior, guys, it looks soft touch in most places. So it's gonna be a very, very cozy interior. Now, I'm not a big fan of this parchment/cream interior. I think it's kind of gross. This aluminum-like trim is something we see in a lot of Infinitis at the moment anyways. But we got our first glimpse of the interior of the QX60, and I think overall it looks pretty good. Even this armrest here, this contrast looks pretty nice, and the stitching looks pretty good overall. So what do you guys think of the interior? I'll see you in the comments below. And while we're at it, guys, over at Automotive News, again, we get more information on the Nissan-Plus strategy to speed up the new models. And again, there's the QX60 monograph. So Nissan's latest strategy for Infiniti has been described as less mini Mercedes and more Nissan-Plus. That means Infiniti will share platforms, powertrains, and assembly lines with Nissan product line in an effort to boost production and development efficiencies. And then according to Jeff Pope, rebadged cars is not the direction we're going. But I mean, I feel like that's gonna be, look at the Lexus ES. Makes Lexus a ton of money. It's not all that different than a Avalon. So it's a lot nicer, it's built better, it's definitely a nicer vehicle overall, but think of Infiniti, the entire Infiniti lineup, to be just nicer versions of the Maxima or the Ultima or the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder and QX60 are pretty much the same, very similar already. So I think they're just going to be taking a lot of Nissan products and recladding them, rebadging them. And they said they're going to be sharing powertrains as well. So now they also talk about some product overhauls. They're mentioning the QX55 will be coming out next year. And they say versus the QX50, the front end is different and features a new grille design. And the QX55 is going to be kind of the torchbearer for their designs moving forward. That launch will be followed by a redesign of the mid-size 3-row QX60 crossover, which should arrive in stores by summer. So that means QX55 is coming out spring of 2021, QX60 coming out spring of 2021, summer of 2021. So I think that's actually sooner than what I was expecting. So they moved those products up, which they need to because the QX60 is dying. It's just been too long on the market. And that vehicle, the QX60, the next one will be the first product launch under the Nissan-Plus strategy and a test to see whether the brands can share more common components without sacrificing their distinct identities. I think they'll be okay. They say that screen that we just saw has a 12-inch screen, but it says dual. Going back to that picture, it says dual 12-inch screens. I don't see dual 12-inch screens in here, unless the other 12-inch screen is behind the steering wheel. And that's where I think they're stuffing that other 12.3-inch screen. QX60 expected to be offered only with a gas engine initially, but they left the door open for other powertrains. E-Power is the first thing that comes to mind. And if they don't put the twin turbo V6 and the base, the 300 horsepower and the 400 horsepower, they're doing themselves a disservice. This is their best selling vehicle. They need to put their best foot forward, and a 3.7 liter naturally aspirated V6 is a good engine, but when it's made it to the CVT, it's not exactly luxury at that point. So if they're able to keep the 9-speed transmission that is just debuted in the Titan, we'll see it in the new Frontier. They can put that in there with the QX60 with a 300 horsepower and 400 horsepower twin turbo V6s. This thing is going to be even a better success than the current generation. Switching gears to Hyundai Ioniq 5 to cost a little bit more than Kona EV. Hyundai announced the Ioniq brand as a fully electric brand about a month or two ago, and they're saying that this fully electric Ioniq 5, which is kind of like a smaller crossover, should be sold between $42,900 to $45,400, which is a lot of money. But when you look at it compared to the Kona EV at $40,300, at least that's what it sells for in Korea, the equivalent. It's not that much more, and it gives you a lot more range. And they're saying even in Korea, after subsidies, it brings the vehicle down to $25,700. That is mind-blowing. They're taking over $15,000 off the price of subsidies. That's crazy. That's absolutely nuts. So I expect, with the prices like that, I expect electric vehicles to be adopted quickly in Korea. They detail the battery. So the base is going to have a 58 kilowatt hour battery, and the 500 kilometer, which is about 310 miles of range, is going to have a 72 kilowatt hour battery. It can be available in two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. And it's also going to have a vehicle to load feature that allows users to freely use up to 24 kilowatt hours worth of electricity stored in its battery for car camping, and a replacement for generators used for snack cars and event cars or natural disaster events. Heading over to Motor One again, Genesis G70 wagon spied testing in the Alps. I don't expect this to come to America, but it's pretty cool to talk about. How do we know it's the new G70? Well, look at the headlights. And look at this new grille that was obviously revealed with the new G70 design. But a wagon is pretty darn cool. Now, the window line's kind of funky here, because you'd think on a wagon you would have an elongated window. But again, this is totally just a concept that they're playing around with. Would you be interested in a G70 wagon and you could officially call it a G-Wagon for like a tenth of the price, you know? What do you guys think about that? And obviously not a tenth of the price, but a quarter of the price, you could get a G-Wagon, and they need to differentiate themselves away from the current automakers here in the United States. If they can offer a wagon, I know it's already very small niche. Many automakers don't offer it. Lexus offered one once upon a time in the IS 300 Sport Cross or whatever it was. Again, going back to the sales guys, Genesis at the very bottom. Guys, they're even behind Alfa Romeo. Let that sink in for a bit. Genesis is the worst selling luxury automaker in the United States. And they're not getting any better, down 24%. But at this rate, they might, in about 20 years, they might catch up to Infiniti, the way Infiniti's going. But interesting, once Genesis has the crossovers out, that's going to help them out immensely, like massive, just huge. I would expect their sales to double, if not triple, with crossovers in their lineup. But a wagon would be pretty cool to have in their lineup. And speaking of the G70, over at Motor Biscuit, 2021 Genesis G70 models are already being recalled, and it's on its fuel pump jet nozzles. If you bought a 2021 Genesis G70, there's a recall on it. Hopefully it doesn't stall on you when you're on the highway and the car shuts off. So guys, pretty scary stuff, but we've seen so many fuel pump recalls in the last year or two that it doesn't even surprise me. Doesn't surprise me. And guys, that's it for today's news. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't pressed the like button, go ahead and do that. If you're not subscribed, that would be awesome on the journey to 100,000 subscribers and beyond. Just hit 70,000. It feels pretty darn good, and we're just moving right along. I have a new review to announce for you guys. So I'm currently reviewing the Acura RDX A-Spec. After this, I get a Hyundai Sonata, and after that, I'm getting a Toyota Avalon TRD. So lots of reviews in the future. Definitely stay tuned for that. Subscribe if you're not. Hit the bell icon, like button. If you guys want to support the channel even further, you can become a member of the Lexurious Fleet. You get emojis and badges and other things as well, exclusive content.